All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to these videos where I talk about random crap. I won't say crap because the way we talk is very important. So let's start off there. So it is a Sunday afternoon, roughly 3 p.m. And my name's Sarah, for those of you who are just now finding these videos. So I would like to introduce myself. I'm at my art studio at the moment in Maryland, painting with a purpose. And again, this is like the philosophy corner, if you will, an extension of that. Everything I do is an extension of, everything's pretty much aligned. But this is not an affiliation with my art studio or my other socials or whatever. This is just kind of, where I get to muse a little bit on these topics that go through my head. So today, oh my god, and it's a hot one out there, man. I'm telling you, I got the AC like going in here and I'm still like, oh, anyway. Today we will be talking about a few things as always, but namely the first thing that I'll be touching on is mortality, something that nobody wants to talk about. Rightfully so, I understand, and it's a touchy subject, because I believe that like with the different, emotions that are attached to death, depending on the nature of death, which I'll be talking about, and the grief that accompanies that. But I don't want the focus, and I'll say this as a preemptive thing, I'll preface it with saying that the focus of this video with talking about mortality isn't so much, it's just mostly on like death as an objective thing, mortality as an objective, if you will. So this isn't going to be like a sad video or anything like that. I try to be very like objective in my approach to these things. So yeah, I was thinking the other day, like, because it's a lot of roadkill. It's summer, so a lot of and I don't like using that word roadkill either. I've talked about this before, but it's a lot of dead animals, because that's what it is, right? So we'll use the correct language here, but it's a lot of dead animals, mommies and babies, and like I see them when they try to cross the street. For example, dead turtles. It's like really like, it's that time of year. It's like prominent. They're very much out right now. It's really, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. So it got me thinking, like, because death is something that affects everything. But the manner of death is so unique to everything that, they call it the great equalizer. So like, and I realize, I think the older that I get in my own understanding of death, and the various ways that it can come about, it's sometimes it's a single event, sometimes it's a process, and we are mortal. So like and I don't think many people grasp this. They think, like one day something just happens to you and that's just how it is. Everybody dies, right? But I think that, like, I mean, even if nothing happens to you, that's when I had my mortality like realization, when I was like 21. I mean, I knew everything died before that. And I'm sorry I'm getting a little bit all over the place here, but I have a point to this. Follow me. Yeah, when like, I've known that, like, we go to sleep one day, we don't wake up, since I was like a very young child. But having like the realization of my own death, when I was 21, and having this kind of, I had a mental breakdown, just the ultimate realization that, no matter what you do, excuse me, you can avoid all the accidents in the world, right? But you are mortal, so you're built to die. Like, it's biologically in you. You keep going and going and going. Even as my mouth is moving right now, I know I'm going to die. Like, that's just how it is. Every moment you're closer to it. And people compartmentalize it. It's called mortality salience, is actually what it is in psychology. Having a strong like perception of self and society and like a cultural background, so that you're not really focused on the outcome of all outcomes, if you will. But nonetheless, it's there. But again, it's not, sometimes it's a single event, and sometimes it is sometimes it's an event, sometimes it's a process. If you're lucky to get to old age, and old age is a gift, if you're lucky enough to beat all the other odds in your life, if you get to old age, don't complain about it. That has its own set of issues, but you made it to the finish line intact. Unlike some of the animals that I see that try to cross the road, that just like, I'm like, how do people say like, oh, well, how did you see that? You have great eyesight. Like when I stopped to help an animal, like crossing the road or something, like a turtle, I tried to help that turtle the other day. And it's just like, if you're looking forward and surveying your surroundings, you're gonna see, like, you're gonna see. I just don't see how people don't see animals. Like, it just bothers me. But yes, for an animal like that, and like a reckless, a reckless driver strikes down the side of the road, just negligence, man. That's something that ends with an event. Decline is more so the natural way of things, but that's entropy for you. But I was thinking about all of this, the other day, and just reflecting on mortality as like a whole, as a concept. Because I like to remind myself, I'm running out of time. I might as well do as much today as I possibly can and get it done, and know that no time was wasted. Rather than look back and say, well, I wish I would have done XYZ. But yeah, so, and I think that it got me thinking about how, like, if we have no choice and death is inescapable in this physical realm as we know it, we should at least try to make life a little bit more bearable, don't you think, for like the other creatures and like the humans that we share the world with. And the fact that some people just think that, oh, it's all about us, it's all about us, so self-centered, so self-serving. Like, it's at the very least, we should use our human privilege to make life a little bit better, for other inhabitants of the earth that we share with, like I said before, like being a good steward of the earth. But if we all must arrive at death's door, should it not be natural? Like, I think that would be the great equalizer. And I don't know if I'm making any sense with this, but like, I believe that like, anything but a natural death seems wrong to me. And people can say, oh, that's just the disorder of the world or whatever. But I think we should be striving for, at the very least, a world that doesn't persist on, subsist on, I should say, like the unfairness of death. They say it's the great equalizer, but shouldn't we be making it like as fair as possible by trying to ensure that everything reaches a natural death insofar as it's possible? There's honor in that, and I don't know. People judge me and think like, well, why were you digging a hole for a dead animal on the side of the road at 2:00 in the morning? Well, because I thought that maybe that would be a better outcome than having his body be desecrated again and again and just ran over and just totally pummeled into the pavement. That's really something. But I try to do the best that I can. And I just don't understand why, like, violence should be a crime in itself and not conflated with death. Like, people will say, oh, hunting's a sport. It's not a sport. In a sport, both teams know they're playing. The animal doesn't know you're playing. It's cruel, and I think that we should like do away with that kind of stuff. Like, if you're like in like the tundra and like that's the only thing that you have and you're starving, I would personally let myself starve, or I would eat like the dirt or something. But to each their own. That's between you and God. But yeah, for me, I would spare the animal. But again, that's only in like a survival situation. Could I maybe understand someone, resorting to violence to feed themselves? But other than that, we should all try to make sure that death is like as natural of an event, if you will, as possible. we should make sure that no one arrives there at violence or, you know, and I think with the state of the world right now, it's especially important to be very mindful of our actions and the downward effect that they have, the domino effect that they do have. Our words and our actions, making sure they're in alignment with like anti-violence rhetoric, and just everything that that entails. Because like I don't think anyone really likes like bad things to happen that result in death. Like I certainly don't. I certainly wouldn't wish that on even my enemies, because again, it could always be you, it could always be me. And also to boast is wrong, and to say, oh well, it could never be me. No, that's wrong too, because guess what, the people that are saying today, oh it could never be me, those are the people that, you know, might be proven wrong tomorrow. And so again, and I don't wish that on anyone, but it's like that's just the state of things, the very fine, delicate balance that we walk in the plight of humanity. And again, with like going back to like animals and harmony and stuff like that, like I was thinking also, like so many people are like, it is actually disgusting. Like there's like a bunch of people, I've been seeing a bunch of posts actually, like, and I don't know if this is just my algorithm's messed up or what, or like it's a psyop maybe, I have no idea, but there's just like a lot of posts I've been seeing lately, like people being like, oh well, people that have animals are dirty, they have like, you know, animals should all live outside, we should be separated from nature. Have you guys ever read or watched the movie adaptation of The Giver? There's a concept of sameness where society is protected, quote unquote, from all of the natural processes of like the natural world, like animals and like, you know, sex and stuff like that, and violence, which again, insofar as it's possible, preventable suffering is good to ensure that as much as we can. But again, to completely separate ourselves like from like nature is, I think, a crime. It's in itself, to not want to be a part of that. But yeah, going back to that, it kind of reminded me of that book, with like Jonas being like the receiver of memory and stuff like that, and then like the sameness in the society. Like, are we not all like waking up to the fact that we've been so like disconnected, like, and I'm sorry I talk about this a lot, but like from nature, and like what that entails, and then having this like propaganda, like, you know, against animals, like animals are filthy, like it's mental illness to have animals inside. I think if the world was perfectly integrated, we can honestly just like all live in like harmony with all of the animals, like heaven on earth. And to know that we could all share in the same world together, the earth together. Because again, there is a difference between the earth and the world. The earth is the real thing. The world is the man-made thing overlaid on top of the real thing. But yeah, so to be really in alignment with that real thing. So yeah, it made me think about like urbanization, or urban disgust theory. So the urbanization disgust theory is essentially, it's basically entails what I'm talking about with the whole like people are, okay, so people in modern society have this overall, and I feel like it's leaning more towards the negative side of this than the positive, sadly, but this is what I've gathered just as an observer. So like basically it entails that, and it was a real study that was done, but it provides further evidence to the theory. But the theory is basically that, so and I believe it was conducted in between 2014 and 2017. Don't quote me though, I could be wrong, but it's fairly recent. And so it basically says that the more, and this does make sense and it checks out, you can look into it too, the more people are not educated about nature, the more they will be afraid of it. But then also, the more people try to, with like, bear with me here, like the more that there is like infrastructure and new like housing developments, like developments in general, like in in the urbanization of nature, essentially the gentrification, if you will, of nature, so we'll call it that, the human imposition upon nature. So the more we put ourselves into their habitats, there's going to be more animals around human spaces. We see this all the time, like rats in New York, and then they blame the rats, even though it's the humans leaving trash out attracting the rats because we don't know how to clean up after ourselves, apparently. And then it's like, oh, kill the rats. Like, no, pick up the trash and then you won't have a rat problem. It's not the rat's fault for being hungry and being attracted to what they're naturally attracted to, like the food that people leave out. And yeah, but then also going back to the theory, and you know, the more people build new housing developments and stuff, and we're having a housing crisis as well. Like the housing crisis is, you know, the joke is, it's not that we're running out of houses, it's just like, God, like just not restoring old buildings, building new houses that we don't even need, and then no one can afford them, you know, because like it's like we just built this brand new house and then like the economy sucks. So it's just all these things, like it's just all these fucking things. But yeah, basically we're building homes in areas that are like, you know, like I see it here too. I see it in West Virginia, I see it in Maryland, I see it where I live, and bordering those two states, you know, like that's where I'm living in West Virginia, working in Maryland. So I see this, like new developments will be built, and then there will be like deer who are like there's deer in my neighborhood. I live in a residential like area, like there should not be deer here, but they're forced out of like, you know, like the woods and stuff because now they're developing housing developments. They're building housing developments in like often like the outskirts of town by like the country. So they're forcing these animals out of their natural habitat. And then people get upset about, well, why is there a raccoon in my trash? Why is there a possum outside? And because people are experiencing, they have less experience with nature, they are more afraid of it. But also with that fact, coupled with that, ironically, almost counterintuitively, they're afraid of it because they encounter it less. But when they do encounter it, the lack of knowledge forces them to be afraid of it. But the animals, let me backtrack here, like the animals are more likely to travel into human spaces because of what we've done to them, but we're more likely to not be okay with that as a species, even though that's literally of our own doing. So yeah, and it's called the urbanization disgust theory because like the more people will have these interactions, they will interact with nature less, but when they do, they'll be more disgusted by it because of the fact it's like interpolated. So yeah, and it just blows my mind because like when I see like a bug inside my house, I'm not one of those people, you know, I was raised like to love all creatures and stuff, and I was always outside playing with bugs and stuff, and I would always protect them. When I was a kid, like kids at my bus stop would try to like throw rocks at bugs and stuff, and I'd be like on my hands and knees like guarding them, like covering them, protecting them with my hands, like don't throw like rocks on these bugs. But like, so I digress, but like whenever I see a bug inside, I try to remove them outside as safely as possible. That just feels like the correct thing to do. So I can just never understand, like my neighbor, for example, like he like traps animals, and like he apparently like puts like, it sounds awful because it is like, and I hate this guy, but like he puts glass around the edges of his house for like, I guess like skunks like to dig. He's told people this, I know this, in confidence he said this, but he is known to put like glass shards around the edges of his house so that skunks don't dig under his house. And like there's literally skunks that walk around my house, the same skunks that dig around his house. I never bother them, but they are limping because they're digging in the glass and they don't know any better. How are you going to punish a fucking animal that doesn't know any better? It's just living its life. And so that's, again, it goes back to people's misunderstanding of nature, like because the less they're interacting with it, the less they understand it. And the less that they understand it, the more they're going to be afraid of it. So, and then the more they will hate it. And so it's the urbanization disgust theory. And it goes back to this whole thing with mortality, is that when we have such a disconnected like relationship with like nature itself, which should include a death positivity, you know, if we have to if we have no choice but to arrive at death's doorstep, at least let it be natural, peaceful, and make something positive of it. That's one of the toughest things that we as humans are challenged to do, forced to reckon with. Like, I think that in essence, it's necessary to reckon with that, but many people spend their life ignoring it. And so they, in their ignorance that blinds them, they're cruel to other mortals too. They're cruel to the other mortals too. Sorry, I'm like massaging my face. But yeah, and I think that being deeply disconnected from our mortality in a healthy way, like we could be healthily aligned with mortality as a reality, but because we're so disconnected from mortality, and having a healthy relationship with it, um, yeah, it's very sad to see this kind of like just broken structure of, you know, how everything's going. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much. I like talking about integration like a lot, whether it be like my other video about like AI integration, art, and like spirituality and stuff. Like, I feel like this is another one of those things that we could integrate better. Hence why I'm speaking about it. And maybe the two topics don't seem related for this video per se, with like the whole thing about like, you know, like natural death and trying to help all living creatures arrive to a natural, respectful death. Rather than just thinking of violence as a natural thing, because I don't think that it always is in every case. But using that sad excuse, that sorry excuse, to justify unnecessary violence, is unfair. And I think that that does align with like the way that we treat other animals. Because again, when you see like a tiny animal or something like that needs help, um, you're I'll say this, your reaction and the way you treat that animal it's not just one animal. It's a reflection of how, and I'm sorry if I said this before, but how you treat that one animal is a reflection of your relationship with nature as a whole. Like, and I wish more people understood that. So it's not just one animal, it's literally humanity's reflection of how they treat others, staring right back at them. And it could be good, it could be bad, it could be ugly, or it could be heaven on earth, depending on how you treat it, depending on how you look at it, and depending on what you do with your actions and how you align them with your morals. It depends on your morals. So, especially in a world like today, I just hope that you guys consider tuning in a little bit more, being more in alignment. Again, I hope this video maybe give you guys something to think about, something more to think about in a positive way, rather than, you know, because I know there's just a lot of this, the geopolitical, socioeconomical state of the world is extremely fragile right now, as with everything, even our own very systems of life. So yeah, to be mindful, to be kind, to always choose kindness, and to always be honorable, respectful, and try to arrive not in a rush to the end, but just as naturally and integrated and respectfully as possible, because that would really be the great equalizer, is to make it fair. All right, so it's been like the longest video I've done, I think. Thank you for anyone who's still watching all the way to the end. I know I do yap a lot. I know I look kind of crazy right now. It's been a crazy past couple of days. I have my art studio. It's a soft opening period, so we'll see how that goes. But appreciate you guys being here, and I will see you, you'll see me in the next video. Have a blessed day.